Here are some examples with the retrieval to work through, and the retrieval questions are on page 48, but some examples to get you ready or ready to get started on the ready and go portions of your homework. So the first set of questions says determine whether each representation is a function or not a function. If it is not a function, describe what you would do to change it to make it a function. So as a reminder, a function uh, is a relationship where each x value has only one y value. And so as I explore question 1, 2, 7, 3, 9, 4, 8, 5, 5, 6, negative 3, 7, 5, 3, 7, in examining that, I see that my x value of 3 has more than one y value. 3 is paired with 9 and 7. So the relationship in question 1 is not a function, as the x value of 3 is used more than once. So now, in order to make it a function, we would need to change one of the x values. And so because I have 2, 4, 5, 6, and 7, it would have to be some other value. So for example, x could be 1, or x could be 8, or x could be negative 7. In terms of graph number, or question number 2, you have a graph, and one test that we can use is what we call the vertical line test, or the VLT. And what I can do is if I run vertical lines through any portion of my graph, you can see that it is hitting each part of the graph in only one spot. That means each x coordinate is used only once. So question 2 is a function, or the graph in question 2 is a function, as it passes the vertical line test. An example of something that would not pass the vertical line test. So here's a coordinate grid. Let's say I have a sideways parabola. If I were to do the vertical line test, and I draw a vertical line up and down, so let's say that's when x is 2, you could see that the x coordinate of 2 would be used multiple times, and so this would not be a function. Questions 3 and 4 are asking you to state the domain and range of each graph. Use interval notation where appropriate. So as a reminder, my domain values are my x values from lowest on the left to the greatest on the right. And so if we look at question number 3, because it's cut off, we're going to assume that it keeps going. There is not an end point similar to question 4. And so in my graph for question 3, horizontally, it continues to go to the left. So the domain would extend all the way to negative infinity, and it would continue to the right, and it would extend all the way to positive infinity. And I use parentheses because I cannot get to negative infinity or infinity. In question 4, my domain, my graph in terms of extending to the left, ends at negative 3. So negative 3, and because I have a closed endpoint, the value of negative 3 is included. And in terms of extending to the right, my graph ends when x is 10, and again 10 is included, so I have a bracket. Now the range is the set of y values represented in the function or in the relationship, and it's from my lowest value, which is going to be going down, to the highest value going upward. So if we look at question number 3, the graph, now it looks like there's a low point located at the point -1, -2, but keep in mind the arrows on the end, this graph is going to continue to extend downward. So my graph is going to continue to go down forever to -infinity. And then in the upward direction, my graph peaks out or maxes out when x is 7. And 7 is included, so from -infinity to 7. If we look at question number 4, the graph extending downward, the lowest it gets to is when x is -1. So I'm going to have a bracket. And extending upward in the upward direction, my graph maxes out when when y is 4, and 4 is included. So my range would be from -1 to 4. For discussion purposes, let's say the endpoint at the point 10, 1. Let me clear that up just a little bit. Let's say the endpoint 10, 1, -1. Let's say that was an open circle. So the value 10, -1, it would just be an endpoint, but the value is not included. My domain would change from -3 to 10 with a parentheses, meaning it starts at -3, runs all the way to when x is 10, but because 10 is not included, I use a parentheses. Similarly, my range, the low end, -1, would be a parentheses because -1 would not be included, and my graph would extend up to +4.